Governor Mark Gordon calls Biden's energy policies warped. The mayor of Gillette hopes to woo companies building tiny nuclear power plants. And thin ice on Boise Reservoir has claimed 2 cars in the last week. We'll take a look at these stories and more today from Wyoming's largest news organization. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily. In his State of the State address on Monday, Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon criticized President Biden's energy policies as warped, unwise, and, borrowing from General Norman Schwarzkopf, unadulterated bovine scatology. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson reports that the governor emphasized that he won't refrain from using his office as a bully pulpit to fight for Wyoming.
The critical focus of the speech was promoting his $10.8 billion biennial budget proposal, but he also used the opportunity to take a couple digs at President Joe Biden and just to kind of tout his overall policy agendas. It was very consistent with what he's been saying in the past.
Gordon calls his $10.8 billion biennial budget conservative and balanced. On Thursday, the legislature will start deciding how many of Gordon's proposals it wants to keep in the budget. Gillette Mayor Shay Lundvall has a vision for the coal-rich Powder River Basin in northeast Wyoming to build tiny nuclear power plants. Energy reporter Pat Mayo says Lundvall hopes to bring a components manufacturer and an assembly factory to the region to realize his vision.
They want to make sure that this company called BWXT continues to talk with them about the potential of building a small nuclear power plant in Gillette, Powder River Basin, as a way to potentially diversify the economy a little bit more, give the region a little bit of added economic power.
The small nuclear reactors envisioned by BWXT could supply up to 50 megawatts of power to individual operations owned by Wyoming's mineral industries. A Laramie man accused of breaking the windows at his local Chili's restaurant also left a cryptic, threatening stack of letters outside of his apartment door for law enforcement to find. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland says 48-year-old William Coco could face up to 11 years in prison.
He was thrown out of the Chili's earlier that night for loitering, and when somebody came back and broke the windows, the personnel were like, oh, it was that guy that was thrown out. And so police went to Coco's apartment, and when they approached the door, they reportedly found like 10 letters written in red ink on white paper that were saying things about police and that the Chili's manager should die. The officer writing the affidavit said, I believe these were left for police to find.
Coco has been charged with 1 count of felony property destruction and a misdemeanor charge of interference with police. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Nominate a Wyoming Unsung Hero for the 2024 Jefferson Awards by Serve Wyoming. Celebrate those who put others first and uplift their communities. Deadline for nominations is February 29th. Honor the best in our state across 7 categories. Join us in recognizing the hope, persistence, and passion that define the Jefferson Awards' 50-year legacy. Call 307-234-3428 to nominate an outstanding volunteer and be part of the spirit of service in Wyoming.
A Utah man accused of crashing into a Laramie home and demolishing the front porch while fleeing law enforcement at more than 100 miles per hour also allegedly had marijuana, illegal mushrooms, and his child in his vehicle. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland said 30-year-old Louis Villanueva could face up to 28 years in prison if convicted on all charges.
So the highway patrol pulled this guy over for going a little, 10 miles-ish, a little more over the speed limit on the highway. But then out comes this alleged odor of raw marijuana. And once the trooper starts asking questions, Villanueva allegedly takes off 108 miles an hour, headed into Laramie.
Villanueva was eventually caught when he drove his vehicle into a porch of a house in Laramie. Officers reported he was apprehended after taking his injured child out of the vehicle. And people have been driving on thin ice at Boise Reservoir between Riverton and Thermopolis in central Wyoming. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that 2 vehicles have been pulled out of the ice-covered reservoir in the last week.
Thankfully, neither of them fell in a spot where they were completely submerged. It was only a couple of feet, but it just goes to show that the ice may seem thick, and it's thick enough still. There's warm water moving under the reservoir, and the water changes under the ice on a reservoir as well. So there's no guarantee that it's going to be anywhere near as stable as it looks. So it's best not to take that risk and just walk out to your ice fishing spot instead of taking your Subaru out there, unless you want your Subaru up to its hubcaps in water.
And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the subscribe button on CowboyStateDaily.com. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.